This episode of the Accounting Insiders podcast is brought to you by Out-of-the-Box Technology. Out-of-the-Box Technology is your partner in accounting data services. With over 7,500 industry migrations performed and an expansive network of third-party integrations, a partnership with Out-of-the-Box will augment your advisory practice and turbocharge client accounting operations. Visit outoftheboxtechnology.com/insightful-accountant to get started. All right. Hello, and welcome to another episode, the first episode of the year of 2024 of the Accounting Insiders podcast. My name is Gary DeHart. I am the publisher of Insightful Accountant and the host of the Accounting Insiders podcast. My guest today is Darren Root. Darren is the Chief Strategy Officer, among many other things. He's the Chief Strategy Officer for RightWorks, and Darren and I are going to be speaking on AI in accounting in 2024, and just a high-level discussion. Kind of the key items we're going to be touching base on are, AI products. Kind of what is it in accounting, and kind of new skill sets accountants need to be thinking about, either their own skill set or for their employees within their firm, rethinking what their tech stack looks like, and how does this impact staffing. So Darren, welcome, and appreciate you taking a couple of times. It's all of January the 3rd, so we're deep into this new year, and it's already started.
We're not even deep into the first week. I mean,
right. We're here. It's going. So
we are here.
Yeah, train started. Better get on it, right? Before we dive in, I would like to get you just to kind of share your resume. I know you've been in the space. You were in the space when I got into the space, so I'm going to say you've been in the space a long time, because I've been in it a while. But so just
you have
of your background and your history, and then also just tee up what you're doing with RightWorks now.
Yeah, after leaving Deloitte a long time ago, I started a firm in Bloomington, Indiana, Gary, and so practiced for about 35 years in an accounting firm. So we had a small, medium-sized firm, grew nicely. We were really early on in client accounting services and client advisory services, and sort of doing bookkeeping and payroll and all that stuff back when CPAs were like, oh, I don't want to do any of that stuff. We built a whole business around that. And so ran Root Advisors, the name of the firm, for about 35 years. During that period of time, somewhere in there, I started helping Thomson Reuters. I started what they call their partner summits for them. Okay. And I ran around the country. I found that I sort of had a skill for helping accounting firms take sort of complex technology things and business model ideas and try to simplify them. So I started doing those for Thomson Reuters, and they just went really well. And what I realized was there was this need for an ongoing sort of training style for accounting firms. And again, this goes back, between 15 and 20 years ago, Gary, when Gary Boomer was really one of the only games in town, really doing this stuff well. And I shifted my focus to small, medium-sized firms, where Gary was focusing on, some larger firms. And I started a company called RightWorks while I was doing those partner summits for Thomson. And, we've grown to, 1,000 accounting firms across the country as members. I sold that company about 4 years ago to RightNetworks, which is now RightWorks. Yeah. About the same time, 15 years ago or so, Gary, I started RootWorks. I was asked almost the same day if I would be the executive editor of CPA Practice Advisor magazine. Yeah. And I, for whatever reason, said yes. And almost the same day, Michael Gerber of eMyth fame asked me if I would co-author the eMyth Accountant book with him. So needless to say, running the firm, starting RootWorks, helping Thomson Reuters, writing a book, and doing CPA Practice Advisor was, sort of a lot. And I was able to keep that up for about 7-8 years. And, finally, I wrote another book called The Intentional Accountant somewhere in there. But I started settling on running RootWorks.
Mhm.
And then I sold RootWorks and sold my firm all at the same time. And now I'm chief strategist for RightWorks.
I got you. So out of all of that, I would expect you to have a lot more gray in your hair up there. So,
geez, it must be some coloring, or I'm starting from the side and working my way up.
Right, there you go. That so out of all of those things, and this is not the topic that we were going to talk about, but out of all of those things, based on what you said there at the end, I'm assuming that your bigger passion you ended up in was more in that training side and really helping firms.
I think and that's a great question, Gary. I think what I realized a few years ago, maybe 5, is it's one thing to give advice. If the tools don't exist for people to do something with that advice, then you're just, your firms just aren't going anywhere. If you tell them to get all their data organized and do all this stuff and be proactive and all the things that we feel like they should do, but there's no tools that help them do that, then they're kind of stuck still. And so I wanted to evolve more to being an influencer with the vendors and help create the tools that I know the firms need to sort of prosper and flourish in the world we live in today. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so that's a great segue. In the world we live in today, AI is the topic of the day, right? And so from a product standpoint, let's look at it 2 ways. What's currently impacting, how is AI currently impacting the accounting profession? And then where do you see that going in the next, we'll just say 3 years? Because who knows what's going to happen.
Right. I was hoping we wouldn't go beyond 3 months, but let's just kind of start a little basic as to, we're using this term now called AI. I think what we mean is generative AI, which is different than machine learning AI. Right? Artificial intelligence has been around for a really long time. Machine learning's been around, and it's been getting better and better. QuickBooks Online was able to tell you this transaction should be this, and that's machine learning, things like that. ADP's been doing this for a long time too. They can say, oh, these people don't have a 401k plan. Again, machine learning, very simple kind of stuff. What changed the game was really more of the chat GPT and moving into this thing called generative AI, which is able to start taking all that machine stuff and predicting at a much higher rate and with a lot more accuracy and a view of almost the entire internet, and predicting and telling you what's next and actually helping you do what's next. And I think that's what's new, Gary, is that this generative AI thing, it just kind of, it feels like it snuck up. I'm sure, ChatGPT or OpenAI didn't think that, but, it feels like it just kind of snuck up on us this last year. And now every vendor is racing to figure out how do they leverage generative AI inside their products to make accounting firms better.
Yeah. And so what are you seeing, since you do work pretty closely with multiple vendors? What are you seeing? And I don't want to put you on the spot or any vendor on the spot, but wondering if there's anybody who is exceeding in AI that you're dealing with currently.
Well, I wouldn't say 2023 anybody was exceeding. I would say that there was a lot of discussion because it was like it like popped up, early in the year. It's like, holy crap, what's going on here?
Right.
And so all the vendors were, I wouldn't say scrambling, but to some degree trying to figure out what their strategy is. I've spent a fair amount of time talking to ADP, and I have a session coming out with their chief data officer on, if this goes live before January 17th, it's January 17th. At the Accountant Summit for ADP. But
we're marketing that.
Fantastic. So we did their like I said, their chief data officer and I did a session on sort of how ADP's thinking about generative AI to a degree. And it's just so much more than machine learning. It starts predicting what's going to happen. Like, hey, this employee hasn't done X, Y, or Z,
Mhm.
and they're more inclined now to do, Y, and you should go take this action as a prediction. So if we just take that as an example, and we start thinking about if we could get our data organized inside of a firm, and we could talk more about that in a minute, but if we could get data organized and it could say, hey, did you know you have this client who is a partnership, and we know they don't have a buy-sell agreement and it hasn't been funded, you should reach out to them. To me, this is what client advisory services is all about, being
Absolutely.
able to be proactive and advise. But it requires data to go do that. Otherwise, you're sitting there on the phone waiting for somebody to call you.
Yeah.
So I think that's the greatest. I wouldn't say the greatest. It's one of the big hopes that we get. I think in 2024 is more vendors are starting to organize data in a way to surface opportunities that supplement the accounting firm to be more proactive.
Mhm.
So I would say that's one huge win that we're going to see in 24, Gary. The other one I think is huge is, most accounting firms start with, I would say, a clean sheet of paper, if you will. I mean, you and I both write. So in our careers, we started with a blank white sheet of paper, and we would both say, wonder what I should write about today.
Right.
And then we would start writing, right? So you really had to generate all that. If you try, I don't know whether you tried it or not, I certainly have. Go to ChatGPT and say, hey, I'm thinking about this. Can you give me a brain dump on this?
Right.
So I'm not starting with a white sheet of paper, a clean sheet of paper anymore. I mean, I've got 60 to 70% of some stuff there that I can start working with, which is helpful. Have you tried that yet?
I did. I did a presentation probably about 6 weeks ago, and for it, I just said, "Hey, give me an outline for this topic," and it's like,
Yeah.
and it's like, wow, it's fantastic.
It's like starting with something. So if you look inside of an accounting firm and you say, okay, I have this S corporation that is a dental office, and there's two partners, and they each make 500 grand a year, and they have 12 staff people, and you kind of go through the scenario, and you pop this in, let's say ChatGPT, and you ask it a question. Tell me the top 10 best tax planning ideas that these guys should use. It'll come back with 10 fantastic ideas. You may only like 7 of them, you may like 8 of them, but it wasn't a clean sheet of paper.
Right.
And then you can take that and you can send that. I mean, you can put it in your stuff, you can massage it, you can change the words, you can do whatever you want. But now all of a sudden you can be proactive and you can reach out to that dental client and say, hey, I noticed that we've only done 3 of these 7. And here's 4 things we need to do. Man, that's huge, I think. Right. And so I think that's going to be a game changer for firms this year too, as they learn to use the technologies.
Yeah. And are you seeing firms using the tech? And again, you deal with a lot of firms. Are they proactive?
So we being RightWorks, we did a survey that we should be publishing here pretty soon. And some of the questions that we did around AI, this was a leadership survey, but some of the questions around AI with most firms, again, were doing very little to almost nothing and had very little awareness. Again, we did the survey maybe a couple of months ago. So this is changing so rapidly. You've probably been to some conferences. I've done some conferences in the fall. The AI rooms were pretty full in those conferences. So I think there's a desire, but it feels like we're really in the early stages of firms trying to understand how this could be useful, things like that.
Yeah, and do you think that push is, well, I don't know. I don't even know if pushback is the right term. Do you think it's more of, hey, I have all this work to do already. I can't even think about how to implement this, even though it might save me 100 hours a year. Probably not that, but
Yeah, I think that's always the case, Gary, is firm owners get too busy driving to get gas.
Yeah.
It's just like, I gotta go, and I think think what you're going to see is firms who don't get on board with this are going to be challenged with staffing in the
Yeah.
future. They're going to be challenged with being proactive. They're going to continue to do what they've always done. And I think the customer expectations are going to shift with the firms who are becoming more modern and who are leveraging these kinds of technologies.
Mhm.
So unlike in the past, if you didn't, if you just kept doing tax returns over and over and over, and you did your client advice or your client accounting services, you were always busy because you're doing compliance work. I think what we're going to see now is there's going to become tools that help do that compliance work so much more efficiently,
Right.
leveraging some AI technology, that other firms that gravitate to these kinds of technologies are going to be more competitive, and they're going to have better products. In the past, I think you could just keep plugging along because everybody was kind of doing the same thing, using the same tools. But this is I think game changing.
And are you seeing the people who have adopted, are they our age, or are they, the 28-year-olds who are coming out going, you
Um,
know what, why am I doing this when all I have to do is ask a question?
well, almost everybody in the profession is our age, Gary, so it's hard to get away from
Right.
that. So there's a whole bunch of people our age that are adopting. I would say the 45 to 65, 70-year olds
Yeah.
that are really embracing the technology. I think the challenge right now is people are just trying to figure out, okay, what is it? What does it do? How can it help me inside of my practice? Other than being something that writers use to, get ideas. How do I
Right.
practically use this thing and inside my practice? I feel like that's what 23's been. I think what you're going to see by mid 24 is you're going to see the ADPs, the Canopies, maybe the Thomson Reuters and Intuit starting to really roll out some generative AI that's meaningful,
Right.
that's really starting to help. So I think 24 is going to be the year that people are going to start getting it and start sort of getting on the bus. I think the challenge, Gary, is going to be um, for firms to make sure that they're adopting the right technology stacks to leverage the best technology. And firms are not typically good at vetting technology and understanding what the right tech stack is and putting that together. I think it's going to become more important as we move into 24 that firms are selecting the right vendors who are paying attention to this, who have the investment funds to go after this, who have a plan, and then trying to build that stack in a really smart way.
So, I mean, the point of this discussion isn't to plug RightWorks, but is that something that RightWorks does? I mean, I think it's with all the changes that RightWorks has had, acquisitions, in the past 2.5, is it 2.5, 3 years, I guess? Um,
Yeah.
what all is under that umbrella that you guys do in your service stack there?
Well, we rebranded in the fall of 23
Yep.
from RightNetworks and RootWorks, and there was some other companies underneath that umbrella, but those were the two name brands, to RightWorks. And then what was our education wing became RightWorks Academy. So now what you're seeing is under RightWorks, we have our platform called OneSpace. And we believe every tool that every firm has should be in the cloud somewhere. Well, we actually believe it should be in OneSpace, right? So we don't believe there should be servers in closets anymore, and you should have stuff dispersed all over the place. We think it should be in one space. Therein lies the name. So we are working really hard to have this intelligent cloud-based platform where whether you're using Lacert or you're using UltraTax or you're using ProFX or CCH product access, all that stuff, along with all the other tools, QBO, QB desktop, all that stuff can come into one space. And then we're layering onto that smart tools to help accounting firms inside that space. The other component of our business is the RightWorks Academy, which is helping firms with their strategy, with their tech stack selections, with best practices, all that kind of stuff. So that's really what we're doing now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, oh, it makes a lot of sense. And I would think it's a huge need in the space because like you just said, I mean hey, I'm a great accountant, I'm a fantastic tax person, or the best bookkeeper on the planet, but I don't know technology. I don't know, I can't possibly keep up with the volume of change in technology that's coming every single day. I mean, every day you
Yeah.
get a release about somebody else adding, AI or something to their solution. But, you certainly put your hands on more technology than I do. But even some of them that we put on it, they're, well-known companies, and you get in it, you're like, I don't know. This doesn't make sense to me, right?
Yeah.
And how can a firm owner do that? Spend time vetting, 10 technologies? They really can't.
Well, then you layer onto that, Gary, the security risks associated with, protecting your network, and single sign-ons and logins and client logins and all this stuff.
Right.
I think back when I started practicing and how we tried to manage all that. Well, the reality was when I started practicing, the risk wasn't what it is today. So today, an accounting firm shouldn't be managing all that. This should be turned over to people like a RightWorks and into one space.
Right. And it's just the cost of doing business.
It is.
And maybe added as an insurance cost of doing business. But
Yeah.
yeah, I certainly hear you. So the new skills, it's really delving into that technology, right? And I think kind of the example you put out there, it's just open it up and start using it, right?
Yeah.
And put your hands. Anything else out there that you've seen that's leveraging AI or even any other skill set that firm owners need to be aware of?
I think there's this big retraining that needs to happen for staff inside of firms. Because, I mean, you've been around the profession a long time. Most staff and owners of accounting firms are in the production mode. They're into, give me that payroll, let me grind through it, or let me crank that tax return out. I think we're going to see as we move in 24 and 25 that technology is going to handle a lot of that transactional work that we've been so used to doing. When I wouldn't say take it away, but when that can be done in a more automated way, we have to retrain our staff on how to even think about what's their day supposed to look like. If you've been making widgets all day and all of a sudden you go into management, you're not making widgets anymore. You got to learn how to be a manager.
Right.
And I think today, everybody inside of a firm has to learn how to become an advisor.
Yeah.
And let the technology do a lot of the transactional things, and you become that proactive advisor, really servicing those customers and doing what the customers has always wanted you to do, which is to be a proactive advisor to them.
Yeah. Yeah. Call me up and tell me, hey, like you said,
Yeah.
hey, here's 10 great ideas. Let's implement one of them, right?
Yeah.
And see what happens. And absolutely. I mean, I think we all know the professionals are sitting in the seat to be able to do the advisory, because we as small business owners, that's what we need. And that's what we're looking for, is somebody to look over our shoulders and say, hey, have you really thought about X, Y, or Z? So what about, we touched a little bit on the tech stack, and so rethinking the tech stack, is it, do you think that's more of, is it slimline or streamlining, there we go, the number of apps that are in that tech stack? Or is it, and again, not a plug for RightWorks, but is it outsourcing and saying, please tell me what I should be doing here, because I know I need X, Y, and Z, but I'm more scared of what I don't know what I need. like security software.
What I think is happening, so I think you're spot on, Gary. I think streamlining is how firms should be thinking about this as we move into to 24 and certainly post busy season. You know, if you kind of look back at the profession over the last 30 years or so, you know, we went from, you know, you may not have been in it yet, but you were thinking about getting in it. There, you know, there was the Thompsons, the CCHs, you know, you had the tax software vendors, you had the payroll vendors, you had the accounting software vendors.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had the suites sort of, you know, gobble up all the competitors in that space, like, you know, TR, Intuit and CCH. And then they started developing sort of suites, if you will, of software. And then they didn't keep up overly well with, you know, the way things were changing at the rate of speed things were changing. So we saw all these point solutions sort of come up. You know, somebody to take a payment, somebody to send an engagement letters, another company to do something else. And so what firms have seen is sort of a blossoming or a busting at the seams number of technologies inside of their tech stack. And I think as we move into 24, a lot of those features, those companies that were releasing features are getting incorporated back into I mean, let me just take Canopy as an example. So Canopy is a firm practice management solution that now you can do an engagement letter, you can take a payment, you have client portals, you have client communication. There's four companies right there that are now all up into one solution.
Right.
And I think that's what we're going to see is a narrowing of that tech stack. So you got to find the right vendor who has features and functionality for your firm, but also is thinking ahead with AI. And you've got to have the time to implement. And there lies another one of the big problems. But I think that's what we're going to see.
Yeah. So and this kind of goes to the fourth topic and the last topic we were going to talk about, and that's addressing staffing shortages. But I'm going to, before we speak specific to that, how much time over the years have you recommended? Are you still working with firms kind of in that consulting role? Is that part of what you do day to day?
Yeah, I do a lot of speaking, and I'm still writing a lot and running webinars, things like that.
Yeah. Okay. So in that, how much time do you recommend that like a firm owner or somebody from within a firm spend on training? And I'm not talking about, I got my, my CPE credit check, but I mean like real, great. You bring on Canopy. Well, I've never used Canopy, but I don't imagine it's, plug and play. It may be intuitive, but I'm sure it's not plug and play. And to really get the full power of it, you've got to spend time, I'm sure. What kind of recommendation do you see or do you push out there for firm owners and members to really spend in their day to learn this technology so it can be beneficial?
I mean, I think if you're going to maximize what these tools have to offer, you probably need to spend I would say 30% of a day per week. I was going to say a half of a day per week, but I mean, QBO's come out with something new, every whatever it is, six weeks. Canopy's got new releases every 6 weeks. You got tax software. I mean, everybody's got new releases constantly. And if you're not keeping up on this stuff, heaven forbid this whole AI thing really blossoms in 2024. Now you got to learn that whole new stuff, right?
Right.
So I think it's one of the best investments a firm can make, because ultimately it's super hard to go find more and more people right now. I think the value is in how you're leveraging the technology for your staff, so that team or the firm can get more done with the technology and team that they have.
Right. So on the staffing shortage issue, probably no real end in sight. AI, if leveraged properly, can certainly help, I guess, streamline the workload. You have any tricks of the trade of where you find good people? Nope, there are no tricks.
You know,
We're outside with
my
the sign.
so I would say, you know, our accounting firm, like I said, has been around for a long time. We don't have a hiring problem. So we've not seen an employment problem at all in Bloomington, Indiana. But I would say that's because we've become a really good place to work, and they still are a great place to work. And people like to go work at great places. And what I mean by that is, you know, we always treated people well. We never expected people to work over 40 to 45 hours during busy season ever. We've never had an expectation of more than that. So we created a fun environment that really supported the team. And so they're always telling their friends, hey, we have a job open over here. So I think the people that get their culture and their business model right um, can find people. But you know that takes time, and it's a lot of work.
Right. Do you know Steve Smith? I mean, a very unique name.
You're right.
Yeah, yeah. I might know three Steve Smiths, but
Yeah.
his I don't even know what his firm is, but it's Quicken Coach, like is his email
Okay.
address. But he actually has hired, I know at least one, if not two people who were one guy is a firefighter,
Okay.
and he said he has kind of poked around in that space because one, they their hours are I don't want to
Yeah.
say flexible, but they've got these block hours, right, that they work in their day job. So they have available time, but they typically, according to him, typically have a mindset of getting the job done, and they want to work, and high standards, high ethics typically. So he's found success in that space, and which,
Fantastic.
yeah, could be anywhere, right? So,
I don't think people need to be CPAs. I don't think they have to have that accounting background necessarily.
right. Yeah. Yeah. Then maybe look at outside and find people that can leverage technology for you, and then
Yeah.
really change your model. So that's the key stuff that we had on our key list of topics.
Yeah.
Where do people find you?
You know, I think go out to rightworks.com.
Yeah.
And if you guys need help, I mean, go out and take a look at what we're doing with One Space. Fantastic. Take a look at RightWorks Academy. That's our education component, and reach out to us.
Yeah. Is that education component, is that a paid component, or you have free and paid?
Working on right now, it's a paid membership component.
Yeah.
So,
And then you speak at various events. About how many
yeah.
do you do in a year typically?
You know, I would say 10. I'm trying to do less and less. Um, Getting on airplanes, you know, for fun plus for work, it's just it ends up being a lot.
Yeah, it ends up not being as much fun, does it? I
Yeah.
didn't have that many trips this year, but every time I had one, I'm like, oh gosh, I just don't, because I'm in Atlanta. Just got to go deal with the Atlanta airport,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's an hour just to get there. So yeah, it's not any fun.
Yeah. I'll put another plug in for the ADP Accountant Summit though,
Oh yeah,
Gary, because I think you're going to be able to pick up some good stuff uh, from that session
yeah,
uh,
yeah. They're doing
that we did
great.
on AI.
Yeah, they're doing great things. Like their whole gosh, what's it called? It's the Accountant Connect. Is that what it's called? The
Yeah, Accountant Connect,
yeah,
their
that's
platform.
available. Yeah, that's amazing. What's
It's
included
nice.
in that. It
Yeah.
really is. So well, there you have it. I think that pretty much
All
covers.
right.
We're about on our time. Certainly appreciate your time, Darren, and appreciate your insight. This will get posted onto YouTube, and then we'll put it on our site as well, and we'll push it out on social media, of course, and we'll tag you in that. What is your
Perfect.
what are you on, like LinkedIn and all that? Just
LinkedIn, I think I'm M. Darren Root.
okay.
And let me just confirm that. You would think I would know that off the top of my head, right?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I think I am, but
Yeah, I think I'm
change
either
it.
Darren Root or M. Darren Root
Yeah.
on LinkedIn. that's the best place to connect with me personally.
Okay, very good. All right. Well, great. Thank you so much.
My
Enjoyed it.
pleasure, Gary. Thank
Talk
you.
to you. Yeah, we'll talk soon. All right.
All right.
Bye-bye.
This episode of the Accounting Insiders podcast is brought to you in part by Xero. Xero is a powerful cloud accounting software that improves efficiencies across your practice. With all client data stored on a single unified ledger, you and your clients can easily access and collaborate on the same set of books. Xero's advisor tools and automation solutions reduce time-consuming manual tasks and put data entry on autopilot. Work faster and more efficiently than ever before with Xero. Visit xero.com/accountinginsiders to learn more.